Welcome to another lecture class of plant cells and tissue culture. In today's class, we shall deal about micropropagation. So, first let us know what is the meaning of micropropagation. See, the very word you can divide it into two, micro and propagation, which means we are talking of regenerating large number of plants starting from a small tissue which is known as the explant under aseptic condition. Since this tissue, whatever we are taking is small, it cannot survive out under the normal condition. So you carry out this under aseptic condition. That is known as micropropagation. So micro means it is a small explant of the tissue. It can be a cell, a tissue, or even an organ. Okay. So when you remove that small part of the plant, can it survive in the normal condition? No, it cannot survive. So we have to provide everything aseptic condition so that it can survive the laboratory condition. So what I am doing, I am taking this particular explant, for example, if this leaf, and I am multiplying it, propagating it to get a large number of the same plant. So what happens? They are clonally similar. See, suppose say if I take the leaf of this plant and I grow it in tissue culture, it will be a clone of this plant, similar of this plant. Okay, so this process is known as aseptic, micro propagation. And nowadays we get so many variety of fruits, different varieties of fruit, different varieties of apple. Now it is a season of mango, so you have this Alfonso mango, Kesar, Badami mango. So how these are all done in such a large quantities? It is all through nowadays. It is by micro propagation. So plants can be propagated either sexually or asexually. Sexually means by the production of the seeds. That is, they undergo fertilization and they produce the seeds. Whereas asexual propagation means here we are taking the vegetative part of the plant. A very good example and common example is the rose. When we take the rose cutting, what happens? It starts to grow, and that rose, whatever you have taken the vegetative part, it is similar to that of its parent or the mother plant, right? So this vegetative multiplication through asexual means is known as clonal propagation. That is, it is a clone of same thing, same variety. If I take, for example, this plant and I take so many leaf pieces, I'll get many number of plant, all which are clone of this plant. All will be similar to, genotypically similar to this plant. That is known as clonal propagation. So plant population derived from a single individual by asexual reproduction is known as clonal propagation. So here our aim is to achieve more number of plants by using micropropagation or by using what the explant. You can use the explant or you can convert your explant into callus or you can convert your explant into suspension culture and then you can grow into a whole plant as you have seen in the organogenesis chapter. So what are the factors which influences organogenesis? What are the factors which are helping in the formation of cytodifferentiation of your cell? That is all. You can look back into the previous video. So, in nature, vegetative propagation is something which have been practiced to maintain unique trait of the cultivar. Usually, this is done in naturally in the nature, in the field. Okay, so if you find that one variety is very good, and what you do is you want that variety in more in number. So what you'll do, you'll try to vegetatively propagate it. so that you get more number of that cultivar which is having that unique trait. For example, as I told you, the rose or even some tubers. Okay, but unfortunately we cannot multiply all species. Can we do vegetative propagation for all the species? Just go to your garden and just take the cutting of all different varieties of your plants and just sow it in the soil. Will it grow all the plants? No. It is only suitable for a particular species. Not all species you cannot do vegetative propagation. That is why we use the micro propagation. That is why this technique of micro propagation is used to initiate the culture from explant. So usually you take 1 to 3 centimeters of that explant. So that large number of explant can be taken without damaging the explant. Each explant will have 1 or 2 node. So I will take the explant having 1 or 2 node and I will see to that I will not damage my explant. So the plants which cannot be propagated naturally by vegetative propagation, I can do it in the laboratory by using a technique known as micropropagation. For this, I will take any explant which I have decided, okay, 1 to 3 centimeters long and which is having 1 or 2 node. So we have very well defined protocol for developing the micropropagation. So we have very well defined 5 multi-steps which are involved in the propagation of the plant. First is the stage 0. Some of them start with the stage 0 and in some book it is referred as stage 1. We shall go to the stage 0. This step we call it as the stage 0 because it is a preparatory stage to provide the quality explant. So it is a preparatory phase. So I have decided one plant in my mind which I want to propagate it. I wanted to grow it in a large amount. So I get a lot of benefit from it. So that is known as the stage 0. That is the preparation of the mother plant. So I have an idea and I would select that plant. Okay. So that is known as the preparatory phase wherein you're selecting the mother plant. From that mother plant, you want to grow more plants. For example, let the mother plant be tomato itself. Okay, I want to propagate more amount of it. Just a simple example I'm giving that. Then in stage 1 is the initiation or establishment of aseptic culture. So in stage 2 is the multiplication. And in this stage is we are going to repetitively multiply because you need to carry out repeated cycle of multiplication till you reach your target. That is, what is your target? The number of plants you want. Okay, suppose say I want 500 plants from this. So what I should do, I should keep on multiplying until I reach it, that 500, my target. And next, coming to stage 3, it is known as the rooting of in vitro formed shoot. It can again be in vitro or in ex vivo. So stage 3, what you're doing, it is the rooting. You're developing the root. It can be in vitro, that is you're developing the root in vitro in the laboratory from the shoot, or it can be even ex vitro. Ex vitro means not in the laboratory, outside the laboratory. Okay. So in the first stage, you see that your introduction and establishment of aseptic culture. You have chosen your plant of interest and then you are going to aseptically grow that plant. and then you are going to multiply that plant. How? I'm going to develop the shoots. Okay, and then what I'm going to do, I will develop the roots. I can develop the roots in the laboratory itself, in this glassware itself, where there is a shoot. Otherwise, if there will be the shoot, no, I can take it to the field in the sense greenhouse, not directly to the field or natural field. So there also I can grow the root. And then a stage of acclimatization. Acclimatization means settling the plant to the external, you, that is intermediate stage. Now from the laboratory stage, they have to go to the natural environment stage. So till now they were growing under your condition, you were taking care of them, you were looking after them. Now you're making them ready to face the external environment, the external world, which actually they belong to. Okay, so from that laboratory stage, you're coming to the real field stage. So that is known as the acclimatization in vitro, or in ex vitro also you can do. In vitro means in the laboratory, in the glassware. Ex vitro means outside the laboratory. So these are the different steps as I mentioned. So vegetatively you can make cutting. Okay, naturally most of you must have done this. Vegetatively you can make cutting, and what will you do? What you want to keep the, when you're doing the cutting, you want to keep the bacterial load low. So what you do, you spray with chemicals, which ensures that the bacteria doesn't grow. Similarly, you spray fungicide. You cover it with the polythene sleeves, loosely cover them, your plant with the, so it is, so there is no any infection or contamination. Okay, so that it cannot be directly exposed to the microbial contamination. So these are the like aseptic conditions which you have to keep it in your mind. So see here in stage 0, this is the initial step of micro propagation, and it involves selection of the growth of the stock plant. That is the, you're preparing which is your stock plant. So for example, I've chosen X plant as my stock and I want to propagate that X plant. I'm not going to take the entire X plant and propagate. No, I will take uh, only the X plant, not the entire plant. So here what they're telling is, once you have chosen a plant, okay, for example, tomato plant we took. When you have selected the tomato plant, that will become a stock plant. For about 3 months, you grow that under controlled condition. That entire plant, you grow it in the controlled condition. So let it be under your control. You monitor it, whether there is any contamination. Is it a healthy plant or a weak plant? So it will be for 3 months under the control condition. Now that plant will become your mother block or mother plant. Okay. So from that mother plant, that is a fully grown plant, whole plant, mother plant mix. From that, I have to take the X plant, and then I have to start developing do the micro propagation. So from this mother plant serves as a source of culture, that is, it serves as the X plant for the second stage, that is the multiplication stage. So what did I tell? Whenever you are doing this, you have to follow the aseptic condition. You have to see to that there is no load of bacteria or fungus. Otherwise, you have to spray it with some chemicals. Okay, like antibiotics you can use, or spray it with fungicide as I told, or you cover it with poly sleeves loosely. You cover them so that it is not directly exposed to the microbial contaminants. And it's very successfully for raising the aseptic culture by spraying these methods. So you can also spray given the growth regulators like cytokinins. Common practice, especially when you are growing gymnosperms, they usually spray even the growth regulators so that the nodes, they become more responsive to the tissue culture. And also you have to see that whenever you are pouring water to the plant, okay, you pour it to the subsoil level. Don't spray the water. Okay, don't splash the water, because splashing of the water can lead to contamination. If there is any spores on the leaf, when you are spraying the water, what happens? That spore is carried by the water droplets to the other plants. It can lead to contamination. So you're not supposed to spray the or splash the water. You just pour it, okay, to the sub level or just on the surfaces. So these are the aseptic condition you can follow. So this aseptically, so this whatever this aseptically plants you're growing, that culture, you take the explant, which then can be multiplied. So this is my mother plant, the previous slide, whatever you saw here. Okay, I have seen that there is no contamination here. I have sprayed bactericides or fungicides or polythene sleeves I have put. I have also added cytokines if it was my gymnosperms, and I pour the water properly to see to that there is no contamination, there is aseptic condition and sterilization. After that, what I can do, I can take the explant from that. Okay, I can take a small piece of plant from that and start to multiply that plant. So the success of this stage depends on lot of factors, most being the appropriate explant. Okay, what is the explant you have chosen? So proper sterilization procedure should be followed. Appropriate media should be provided. Why media? Because that is the most important. That is what is favoring the growth of your explant. And also the explant, it should be collected during the right season. Okay. So you have to sterilize, as I told you, but at the same time, when you're sterilizing, you have to be careful. Your intention of sterilization is to kill what? Microorganism. Okay. And it should not harm your explant. So you sterilize your explant, but at the same time, the sterilization treatment should be good enough to dethrow the microbes. It should be harsh to the microbes, but very soft to your tissue. That one you have to keep it in the mind. So follow the sterilization procedure, follow the appropriate media, what is required for the plant to grow, and collect your explant from your particular season, okay, wherein there is a good growth in that particular season, and you have to follow the sterilization conditions. So ultimately these media constituents which bring changes in the shoot bud, and then they bring about appropriate morphogenic responses. So multiplication is what? Forming the shoot bud. Okay. So now here you can see stock plant is prepared. Washing, that is, you whatever explant you have taken, you wash it with tap water. Use disinfecting solution. Okay. Like you can use a detergent like T-Pol or anything, or sodium hypochlorite, calcium hypochlorite, and see, you have to use what, you should know what type of disinfectant you are using, because it should not harm your plants, and what is the time, that also you should keep it in the mind. And internal contamination must, there will be, you have to check for that. So screening is very important. Okay, after you have done all this, you have to screen that is there any microorganism inside the plant. So then you should go for the initiation of the culture media. So that is what I have spoken here. Bacteria and fungi will overgrow the explant on the media unless they are removed. Pre-treatment to clean up the explant. You can use the detergents, sterilants, and antibiotics. Then you have to provide the media. Ultimately, it's the media constituents which brings the change out the appropriate morphogenic responses. That is, what all stages my plant has to develop, different morphogenic stages. Okay, from the young plant to juvenile plant to an old plant. All this morphogenic responses is brought about by your media. Of course, the choice of the explant depends upon what mode of regeneration you want to do. See, that is what I mean to tell is, now you have to think over like what type of cultivars I'm using and what type of cultivation I require. For example, um, see, if you want to grow a virus-free plant, my aim is to grow a virus-free plant. How will you grow? You will take the meristematic doom, right? I showed you in my previous class also, we have spoken about this, okay? The shoot tip culture and meristematic. One second. Okay, so we have the doom, right? I told you like 100 to 250 micrometers in diameter was what the shiny doom. Okay, and I told you this is the region which is free of even the viruses. So if you want a virus-free plant, if my aim is to micropropagate a virus-free plant, go for the meristematic culture. Or no, I want to develop a clone of plant, then you go for shoot bud cultivation. So like that you can choose whatever method you want. If your objective is in term of getting large number of plants, then you can also try leaf or adventitious budding, or you can go for the shoot budding. So what type of method, what you want exactly is whether I want a meristematic plant or simply I want to develop a shoot bud, or should I develop a axillary bud. This all depends on the individual who want any particular plant. So the explants, that's what I told you, that whenever you're using the explants, you have to be very careful that meristematic doom. And that is where you use your microscope, because it's just a sub-millimeter, that is, it is a micrometer, that meristematic tissue which is used. So once the culture are initiated, that is, you whenever you are doing the meristem culture, when you're removing the meristem, you do it under the microscope. Okay, so depending on the explant, you have again three methods. Okay, you can go for callus formation, otherwise you can go for adventitious bud formation, or you can go for axillary bud formation. So you know about, already we have spoken about the callusing. What are the callus? We know that it is an undifferentiated masses of tissue. We also spoke that we will be subculturing the callus. From the subculturing of the callus, we can get even suspension culture. Okay, so you can go back to the unit 2 video and look into that. So apart from callusing, what else you can get? You can propagate adventitious bud, axillary buds. I'll show you all that in the slide. So even your physical environment is very important. Okay, the temperature. What is the temperature you require? So here I require a temperature is something around 38 degrees. So plus or minus 2 degrees centigrade. So 25 degrees centigrade, I can keep it. Most optimum temperature, that one. What is the moisture level? What is the light? What is the photo period? Do you require the full light throughout, or you do not require light at all? Or do you require a photo period of 16 hours of light and 8 hours of darkness? Depending on your explant, you have to choose all the physical environment. And always problems do come even in your plant tissue culture. From the starting, we are telling that in the first class itself, we told that the biggest problem of your plant tissue culture or any culture is the contamination. If you bypass this contamination, Okay, you don't take care of this contamination, the entire tissue culture is waste. Okay, your labor is waste, your media preparation is waste, your collection time is waste, everything is completely gone. It will go hayway, nothing can be done. So starting itself, if there is contamination, immediately discard that. That is why you grow your mother plant under the controlled condition, so that you see that there is no contamination. But sometimes what happens, the plant itself will produce the secondary metabolites or toxics like this phenolics, which can inhibit the growth. So for this also we have told what we can do. We can use activated charcoals which can remove this phenolics, or you that ascorbic acid which can remove the phenolics. And sometimes the problem is with the dormant buds, particularly the woody plants. Okay, they're very tricky, they don't grow, they don't listen to the our commands in the laboratory. So these are the some of the problems which we encounter in the most common problem. Okay, we encounter during the micropropagation. So in stage 2 we see the shoot production, how the shoots are formed. Now I told you about the callousing, and I also told you that you can go for an adventitious bud formation or the axillary bud formation. I'll just show you all that. It is, see, this is the adventitious bud. Okay, so most of you have seen this in your plant on the night queen and all what you have. Okay, or what is that, queen of Bethlehem, all those plants, you can see that adventitious buds are formed. What are these advantageous buds are? So this adventitious buds, when buds grow from the a position other than the normal node. See, usually what happens, if this is your plant, see, if this is your plant, you have an apical region, apical bud. Then you are having this all this lateral branches or stems, wherein you have the axillary buds. So where are the buds formed? The buds are formed in the nodes, right? So usually that is where your buds are formed. But what are adventitious buds? When a bud grows from a position other than the normal means other than the nodes. So such plants, such buds are known as adventitious buds. That is, they are growing elsewhere other than the nodes, actual where they have to grow. Maybe on the trunks they are growing, or on the root they are growing. Here I have given the example of the leaf they are growing. Okay, so these are called as the adventitious bud. So I can take this adventitious bud and again I can regrow them, right? So these adventitious bud produce, again they can be separated. Okay, and again you can put for the adventitious budding again. That is, you take out this plant, this adventitious bud, you grow them, you produce them again they will produce adventitious bud, again you separate them, again you grow the adventitious bud. So the plants are usually clonal to the mother plant, because you, this adventitious bud is taken from this plant, again you clone that, that clone whatever you have developed, okay, that is again similar to this. Indirectly it is similar to this, or directly it is similar to this. So this is the adventitious bud formation. I can induce adventitious bud formation. By inducing adventitious bud formation, I can plant. Okay, and you have another so callousing, you know, adventitious bud. Now you know what are these axillary buds. See here, this is the apical bud. right? And these here, what you're seeing, the branches here, what you're seeing is your axillary buds. So an axillary buds develops in the branch. These are branches, right? Branches of your plant or your lateral shoot. So it is axillary buds develop in the branch or lateral shoot. It is formed at the junction between the leaf and the stem. So it is formed between the junction of the leaf and between the stem. So the shoot apex tends to inhibit or outgrowth of the axillary buds. Do you see your axillary buds growing? No, they remain like this only. Go to your garden and watch now. They will be like this. Why? Because your axillary bud, here what you have a shoot apex. Okay, and this shoot apex is very dominating. So this shoot apex tends to inhibit the or it outgrow the axillary bud. It will suppress this axillary buds. It will not allow it to grow. Only so that you can see all your plants growing tall, taller and taller because of this apical bud. Because it is suppressing your axillary buds. It's not allowing it to grow. That is why this phenomena is called as apical dominancy. I am dominant. Who's saying this one? Yeah, apical shoot is telling that. Okay. Removal of the shoot tip. What happens if you remove the shoot tip? It leads to the growth of these buds. I have removed now. Now there is no apical dominancy. So you have branches. These branches, what happens? They will start to grow. These axillary buds will start to grow. Now among this branch, one branch will start leading. It will become longer. Okay, and that will act as an like a leader like. So you cut off this, again the other branch will grow. So such type of things, so axillary branching which occurs also can be done. That is, when I cut off my apical meristem, obviously it leads to the branching and many branches will be developed. Among that, one branch will be like a leader branch. Okay, and these axillary buds can be developed. So small bud is present. That is what is this. So apical dominancy, if you remove it, this can become active. How it can be active? You add the cytokinin so that let it develop the shoot. Then you add your auxins so that it can develop the root. Or what you can do is you form a cluster formation. Cluster formation means what happens? You develop a lot of shoots like this, many shoots, okay, in your media, and then you can develop the root. So you have three different methods of multiplication. You can go for calyxing, you can go for adventitious bud, you can go for axillary bud. So when there are two modes which are followed, which is known as stomatic embryogenesis and shoot bud formation. Shoot bud we have already dealt with. Shoot bud and the meristem bud. How we develop, what is the protocol you have studied. Somatic embryogenesis, we'll deal it in a separate chapter. So we'll not mix up the things. So depending on the explant, there are two modes which are followed. One is the stomatic embryogenesis and the other is the shoot bud regeneration. First of all, you start with the differentiation of mast cells, and thereafter you can de-differentiate, have callus formation, and from that you can start developing whole plant. Okay, you take a differentiated mass of cell, you let it undergo de-differentiation, and you have the callus formation. So how I'm doing this all? How I'm developing this entire plant? Just taking this adventitious bud or axillary bud or taking your callus. how I'm producing it to the whole plant. That formation is, I told you, it is known as totipotency. So in the external environment, totipotency is fine. In the lab, how you're going to develop from that to whole plant. That is, you have to interplay with your growth regulators. One of the important, what I told, that is what is media. You require your nutrients. You studied about the major nutrients, minor nutrients, vitamins, amino acid, other growth materials. If you want to add antibiotics, if you want to add charcoal, if you want to add coconut or water or milk. So this all we have dealt with. Of all of which is important, we told that the growth regulators are very important. So you interplay with your growth regulators and you develop whatever you want. If that is, if you want a shoot bud, you develop a shoot bud. If you want embryogenesis, develop an embryogenesis or organogenesis. So you can either develop a shoot bud, you can either develop an embryogenesis, or you can develop a organogenesis. So you know how to develop an organogenesis. The two methods I told you, direct method and indirect method. Okay, in direct method, you're using the explant, it forms the meristomoids and then develop the whole plant. In indirect method, you either develop you take the explant, you develop it into a callus or develop it into the suspension culture and meristomoids, again the whole plant. That is, you just have to interplay with your growth regulators. Okay. So hope this is not confusing. Adventitious bud and axillary buds. Axillary buds means it is growing in between the leaves and the stem of the plant. It is not the apical bud. Usually the apical bud will not allow your adventitious bud to grow. It will always suppress it. But when you remove your apical bud, it will start to develop. Many branches will develop. Among that many branches, one will act as a leading branch. And once it starts as a leading branch, it will suppress the other buds, other axillary buds. Okay. So even by adventitious buds also, this is axillary, this is adventitious buds. Okay, that is it's not developing on the nodes, not on the axial nodes. It can be developed on the trunks, it can be developed on the roots, it can develop on the leaves. Many of you have seen this, which is growing on the leaves, like the spider plant or any other plants like that, what I told you, the night queen and all. So we have, I hope you have understood this. So manipulating the growth regulators in the media, so these axillary shoot starts developing. Okay, so cytokinins favor the shoot formation and auxin favors the root formation. Otherwise, you can use the combination of auxin or cytokinin, or you can use only cytokinin. So these protocols will be standardized. So only after standardizing, you can proceed with it, whether you want only the auxin or you want only with the combination of auxin and cytokine, what ratio they should be, everything will be defined. So has said these axillary buds grow again and again over there is a, so this is a procedure for micropropagation. So once it grows, you chop it into a single node and you will get an explant. Okay, so again what happens, the axillary buds will start developing, right? Again you chop them where there is a node, again you allow them to grow in vitro. So again it will start growing into a stem and it will start producing an axillary bud. So you have to have a node for the developing. And one more precaution what you have to take care is, see, as you are going on doing this subculturing. Okay, transferring into the new media. You have to transfer it into new media. Okay, otherwise the media, as I told you, it will get exhausted, and there will be lot of toxic produced in your media, which will ultimately kill the plant. But what usually happens is that they do lose their potential because repeatedly regeneration, they become weaker and weaker, and thus it is advisable for growing for subculture. And even the subculture is very important. Now this banana tissue culture is, it has very good development in India. It has taken a big boom in the development in the tissue culture, particularly in India. We do this banana cultivation, like this banana which are very sensitive, and there you must stop after 7 subculture. So the duration of the subculture is also important. How many times you are subculturing? So for 3 weeks are you subculturing? Maybe there is a threefold increase. 6 weeks you're subculturing. Maybe there is fivefold increase. 7 weeks you're culturing, but there is no increase in the fold. What is the use? Your plant is going to die. It is going to become weaker. So one example what we are taking is of banana, and I'm telling that your banana is very sensitive, and that is, it can undergo only 7 subcultures. It is sufficient for the banana plant for 7 subculture. Okay, so you go only for the 7 subcultures. So for the other species, you need to standardize how much ever it is required. So we by year. Okay. So mainly it involves the shoot or the rapid embryo formation. I told you that. Okay. You can develop the shoot, that axillary buds or adventitious buds. Stomatic embryos, we'll keep it aside, we shall deal it again. And then you select the cytokinin, because the cytokinin is one which produces the shoot, you know that. And cytokinin is one which is going to undergo cell division. Your cells need to multiply, and that multiplication is done by your cytokinin. Cytokinin, okay, formation of the shoot. So selection of the cytokinin type, because I told you there are different type of cytokinin, kinetin, zeaxanthin, BAP. So you have to choose what type of what you require, and the concentration is also determined by shoot multiplication rate, length of the shoot, frequency of genetic variability. Based on all this factor, you have to choose your cytokinin. Okay. So what type of cytokinin, what is the concentration of the cytokinin you're choosing? It depends on the shoot multiplication rate. How fast it is multiplying, how slow it is multiplying. Length of the shoot. Okay. Frequency of genetic variability. Is there any sudden mutation which are occurring spontaneously? So based on this, you select all your growth regulators. But usually the cytokinin, no, it'll, the main function is for the production of shoot production and cell division, but it will not allow the internodal growth. So if there is a node here, okay, this is a node, okay, from here another plant, and this is the node. It will not allow this internodal length increase. It will not increase that, the cytokinin. Okay, so shoot production, see, you have to go, as I told you, for subculture for at least 4 to 5 weeks of intervals. So you see that how many folds, if I'm going for, I told you, no, 3 subculture, if there is 5-fold increase. If I'm going for a 5-week culture, maybe there is 6-fold increase in the shoot number. So subculture, shoot culture, you should go for subculturing for development of the shoot, and it takes about 4 to 5 intervals. That is 3 to 8 fold increase in the shoot numbers. How much number the shoot is increasing. So you cannot simply keep on subculturing, because it will it will not undergo any regeneration. It is just going to become weaker and weaker. So once you standardize that procedure, you stop your subculturing, right? So the shoot is developed. So during the shoot multiplication, there should be a continuous presence of cytokinin in the media. This cytokinin, okay, it is a suppressing to the root. It will not allow the root to form. Okay, it is only for the shoot. So if the cytokinin is present in your media, it will allow only the shoot formation and it suppresses the rooting. So this cytokinin, as I told you in my previous slide, it will also suppress the internal growth. So the shoots there are stunted. They are not tall. They are short, stunted growth. So for many species, this is perfectly right if they have stunted growth. Okay, because you take them to the, and after that what happens if they are small stunted growth, you can easily take them for the root development. So hope there is not much confusion. Okay, so cytokinin is the one of the growth regulators which are involved in the shoot formation. It suppresses the root development and also the internodal development. So usually the plant will be stunted. For some species, the stunted growth will be fine. But if I want to grow a taller plant, I have to increase my internode. Then what should I do? That is the question. So to achieve elongation of the internodes, we want to get rid of the cytokinin. So we don't want any more cytokinin. So they will be shifted to either into a basal media, that is a root developing media. Okay. So it becomes very difficult to make them survive outside. So another step is to introduce the root inside the in vitro itself. You can develop the root. So to develop a root, what should I do? I should change the concentration of my growth regulators. I should remove the cytokinin. So, and if I want to increase the internode, what should I do? I'll see here how well this is the media, how well you can see the media and how well the root is formed. Look at the shoot. That is, we have introduced shoot elongation by adding gibberellins. So gibberellins is the one which increases the internodal development. It lengthens. So your cytokinin, what it does, it develops the shoot. It undergoes the cell division, but stunted growth. I want a internodal as to grow longer means, then I will use the gibberellins. Or sometimes I can use even activated charcoal so that it can absorb the cytokinin from the shoot. And then once they have grown into a considerable length, then we take them to the rooting media. Okay, now it has grown to a considerable length. Either I can remove the cytokinin or I can add activated charcoal to remove, so that the charcoal will absorb the cytokinin, and then you add your gibberellin so that the internodes grow. Now everything is fine, shoot is grown, it is elongated. Next, what happens? You have to grow the root, right? So we have used your gibberellic acid to grow the internodes. Thereafter, we get a very good elongated shoots. That will be your final step. After this, what we are going to do is we have to go for the rooting. I have developed my shoot. I have elongated my internodes. Now I have to develop the root. So the root introduction can be done in two ways. So in the lab itself, what you can do is, where is that picture? I'll see here. Here, this is only shoot. Okay, so this is growing where it is growing in a container, in a glass container. So here only I can change my media so that it doesn't contain any cytokinin. I will add what? I will add auxin this time so that the roots are developed. So I will add auxin, the root will develop. Where it is developing in your glassware. Otherwise, what can I do is, I can take the shoot, because these are all that elongated shoots. Okay, I can then take this and I can grow it in the pot also. I'll put a sterile soil in the pot. I'll put compost. I'll add the organs so that the root can be developed. So any of the method you can use. So that is what is this. So you take your micro shoots, take them to the transfer area, put the rooting powder at the base, transfer it. Of course, there is you can do another technology also, what is called as a pulse technology. In pulse technology, what you do is, you dip the micro shoots which are formed, you dip them in very high concentration of auxin for 5 to 10 minutes and then transfer them to the potting. So one is this method. The stage involves the transfer of the shoot media for rapid development into the root. Okay. One, you develop the root in the lab itself, in the laboratory itself. Just now I told you, you remove your cytokinin, you add auxin. In the glassware itself, you add your auxin and develop it in the lab. Otherwise, what you do is, you take it to the pot in the greenhouse, use a sterile soil, and directly you add the auxin. That means you have to add compost or peat. Okay, so shoots can be directly developed in the sorry the roots can be directly developed in the pots. That is another method. Otherwise, what you can do is, you can dip your shoot. Okay, so this is my auxin. It is called as pulse technology. You have your auxin which is actually producing what? It produces the root. It synthesizes the root. Okay, so you dip your shoot here. So I'll dip my shoot here. This is my shoot. So when I dip my shoot, what happens? For 5 to 10 minutes, it starts producing the root. So 5 to 10 minutes, and then transfer them into the potting mix. So the root will develop. So it's a very high energy intensive step, these are, because root is a part of an organ of the plant. How important the shoot is, so important is also your root. Okay. So now, see, this is another method, mericloning, a propagation method using shoot tips in culture to proliferate multiple buds, which can then be separated, rooted, and planted. So what has happened? You have added the cytokinins, and so many shoots have been developed. So each of the shoot I can take and develop individually. I can add auxin and develop it into a plant. Okay, this is called as a mericloning. So this is the root initiation, whatever we spoke. Okay, auxins we introduce charcoal so that we remove the cytokinin. We have to provide carbon and nitrogen, light or darknesses depending on your plant, and then the initiation and growth. this juvenile stage of the plant is very tricky. I'll tell you like that. Why? Because in the next slide you can see that. So I have developed now the shoot, I have developed the root, that is, I have developed the plant. Now you have developed everything where you have developed it under your control or under the scientist's control. Whatever the plant is requiring, we are providing. And if I want to make some changes in the plant, I am manipulating that plant. So there will be low photosynthetic rate, non-functional stomata, low cuticle vertex, abnormal leaf morphology. Can I take such a plant and put it into the field, in the uh, uh, f- grow it in the outside field? Will it grow? No. So what should I do is I should change certain concentration. I should bring it to the natural concentration condition. So you reduce your sugar concentration, you reduce your salt concentration. Okay. So what happens is then it will start becoming photosynthetically active. The stomata are non-functional. So this is what that I told you. Your stomata is non-functional, your cuticle is not formed, the leaf morphology is abnormal. If you transfer them to the outside environment directly, these plant 100% there is failure. This plant will not grow. So I have to bring some changes. So what you do is you take this plant, okay, from your tissue culture, you take them to your greenhouse. So in the greenhouse, what you're doing? So this stage involves the establishment of plantlets in the soil. This is done by transferring the plantlets of the stage 3 from the laboratory into the environment of the greenhouse. After the plant has developed, you don't go directly and sow them in the field. No, because these are the problems which you are going to face in the tissue culture plant. So what you have to do is, this one has already I spoken, stage 3 is skipped, and unrooted stage, that is, you can either develop the root and shoot in the glassware itself or uh, in the laboratory. Otherwise you can grow your root separately in the pots. We have spoken about that. And stage 1 to 2 requires a lux of 1000, and stage 3 requires a lux of 3000 to 10,000 lux. So the next stage is to see that I told you acclimatization. Let the plant grow independently of you. You need not support it anymore. Let it adjust to the external environment. So what you do, you grow the plant in the greenhouses. So what happens? It requires humidity, right? So the major problem is that humidity of the room goes very high. But some plants, we require that for the plants. What we do is, in the end of the greenhouse, which is, we use this fan, vents, all this, that is, vents means ventilators, to give, or exhaust, to give a circulation of air. Okay. And this journey of your, from your greenhouse to the lab, it almost takes 2 weeks. So during these 2 weeks, what happens? You are providing certain external physical conditions, like you're providing the temperature, you're providing the light, you're providing the humidity, what is required, so that what you're doing is, so that it can start to produce chlorophyll, it can independently develop the photosynthesis. So it has a functional stomata, it can start producing the cuticular wax. Okay. So ultimately you transfer the plants to the greenhouse, where there is fan and padded, or a cooler is present. So you're multiplying them in the artificial condition. So they lack this very healthy green uh, leaves and all. So you're providing all these conditions so that finally what you get a healthy green plant with the root which is having a very good photosynthetic activity, very good cuticle development, and which has a mechanism for water control. So after this all is being developed, okay, only then, and I told you it takes almost 2 weeks to develop all this, okay, a functional plant. Then ultimately the success of shoot culture depends on the ability to adapt vigorously to the quality plants from in vitro to the ex vitro. Now everything is fine with your plant, you monitor your plant, you screen your plant, and then you see whether all the deficiency what we spoke about here, it is no more present, and then you can transfer it into your greenhouse. Sorry, from greenhouse to the growers, you can multiply the plant. So the main advantages of micro propagation is it can grow round the year, throughout the year you can grow. So it is not seasonal dependent like other plants. It is seasonal dependent, like which was growing naturally. So the plants are free from microorganism. In vitro production can be planned. Micropropagated plants may acquire new desirable trait like the bushy habit. Okay, like I showed you, full of bushy habits, which is good for your ornamental plant, and increased number of runners in strawberry. Okay, I think so. The slides have been interchanged. This is again the acclimatization, the last stage, the process where the physiologically and anatomically your plant adjusts from the in vitro to ex vitro culture environmental condition, and this is called as planting out. Okay, so the humidity should be controlled by covering the plants with transparent polythene sheet. This acclimatization requires several weeks, usually at least minimum 2 weeks, which should be followed by potting the plants into the sterile peat, that is the compost or the soil. So I spoke already about the advantages, and here are some more advantages. Faster multiplication, that is large number of plants can be produced, okay, from a single individual and in a short period. So it is possible to produce genetically identical plant that normally happens in the natural also. Vegetative propagation, what you are doing normally, naturally, that one you can do it in the laboratory itself. In sexually developed plants, what happens when you bring two different plants? They'll be sterile. The seeds will be sterile. They'll not be able to propagate. So you can avoid this, okay, by micro propagation. So what did I tell? Micro propagation, some of the plants you can grow by vegetative propagation. Not all plants grow by vegetative propagation in the nature, but in laboratory I can grow all the plants in the vegetative condition, that is asexually I can produce. Okay, that is how you saw that how the 5 stages what we spoke about. So the seed raised plants pass through an undesirable juvenile phase, which is avoided in the asexual propagation. So there will be a lot of phases in this juvenile phase wherein the plant sometimes can't survive. Okay, there is lot of stress, it will die. So such type of things can be avoided in the asexual propagation, and gene banks can be more easily established. Okay, so you can't carry a tree into, I told you, into a gene bank, and you cannot store that. Instead of that, I can take an explant of the tree and I can store it. I can micro propagate it by any of the means, by either by callousing or by adventitious root or suspension culture, whatever, whichever is suitable for that plant, I can do it in the and store it in the gene bank. Whenever I want that plant, I can retrieve it from the bank. So you get a high rate of plant propagation. As we told, that is, it is throughout the year. You can store it also easily. in the lab, and it can be easily transported. Okay, instead of transporting that huge trees, huge plants, I can transport the micropropagated plant. So disease-free propagules can be produced. So production of seeds in some crops, multiplication in controlled lab condition, cloning of plant types not easily propagated by conventional method. Okay, so in conventional methods, whatever I'm doing, maybe that will not be exactly same as the parent. Okay, or suppose say the date palms, the ferns, they are very difficult to clone them in the natural environment. So these plants, I can clone them easily in the laboratory. So these are the some of the advantages. So we shall speak even about the disadvantages of the micropropagation. So the disadvantages is the specialized equipments are necessary. It should be provided. More technical expertise is required. Okay. So you should be knowing, you should have a thorough knowledge of this tissue culture. You should have lot of patience because you're doing lot of trial and error methods, because you're standardizing a protocol. After standardizing the protocol, you're giving it to a cultivator or a grower or a farmer who can use that same technique how you have done in the field. And if nothing comes out in the field, what happens? Everything is waste. No one is going to purchase that. So more technically expertise is required. Okay, so protocols not optimized for all species. See, there are so many plants, and so many plants we don't know also. And for all this, there is no optimized protocols are not present. That becomes a drawback. Plant produce may not fit into the industry standards because these are usually produced in the what laboratory conditions. Okay, we are bringing on to the green from laboratory to greenhouse to the field. Only when it is successful in the greenhouse we are bringing to the field. But sometimes what happens, it may not fit into your industry standards, and the entire process is relatively expensive. Okay, the setting up of the laboratory itself is expensive. And see, sometimes like producing this calyx or axillary buds or adventitious buds, somatic embryogenesis, root culturing, I told you different ovary culture. So there are so many types of culturing, so many types of protocol. One plant will require ovary culture, another plant will require root culture. So it is relatively expensive setup. So students, what in the whole class I have spoken is about the micro propagation. So taking your explant, you are propagating your plant, and you saw the 5 stages how we are propagating.